In the final section of Chapter 13, we briefly look at viruses. Now, keep in mind, viruses are not the same thing as bacteria, and the biggest difference is because they're not made of cells, therefore they're non-living. Now remember, bacteria, they are made of cells, they just don't have a nucleus. So because viruses are not made of cells, we typically cannot, we call them non-living, so they're not alive. They cannot maintain their own balance, and so they're incapable of growing. They're also incapable of reproducing without a host cell in which to live on or in. Now, virus structure is very simple. Even though they're not made of cells, they do have an outer capsid and an inner core, and the core contains either DNA or RNA, not both. Some viruses have an outer coat on the outside of their capsid called an envelope. The key thing with viruses is that they have the ability to hijack transcription of cells. So what happens with viruses in order to reproduce is they're going to attach to a host cell, they're going to inject that host cell, and then it's the actual host cell that reproduces and makes more virus. Infected cells cannot perform their necessary functions and they eventually will die, but not before they're able to duplicate the virus and then spread it throughout their body. We know that viruses are very specific in nature, and so they only infect certain types of cells. We know that viruses are best known for causing infectious diseases in plants and animals, but because they're not made of cells and because they lack metabolism, antibiotics do not work on viruses. So if you've ever gone to the doctor and you had an infection, they gave you an antibiotic and it didn't get any better, typically if the doctor comes back and says that's because it was viral, antibiotics don't work on viruses. They're only going to treat bacterial infections. And then briefly it mentions viroids and prions. These are like viruses in that they're also not made of cells, and they can cause diseases. Viroids are naked strands of RNA. They affect crops and plants. Prions are rogue protein molecules that can affect humans and other animals, causing diseases like mad cow disease, as well as Creutzfeldt-Jakob. And then here are some examples of diseases that are caused by viruses.